vegetable? Why do the French eat snails? Because they don't like fast food. I'm really sketchy on Tim telling me a joke. I don't want to say it in the microphone. Why do French people only have one egg for breakfast?
Okay. Can you hear me? Thank you. Well, let me welcome everyone. I'm just cheating here, I hope you don't mind. And thank you for coming to this memorial today to honour the memory of my mother, Yvonne. Of course, we, that is my brother Rod and I, always referred to her as just Mum. But in her family, she was always addressed as Bing, being a nickname she got as a kid from a younger cousin who couldn't pronounce her name properly. He would say, Wing Wong. Then that developed into Bing Bong, and finally everyone just settled on Bing. In any case, she was mostly known as Eve to her friends. And as Eve, she found her Adam in Don, our father. But that was not the last, as Don died in 1958 of a war-related condition, joining my mother's unhappy luck of losing her mother as a 7-year-old and baby Dean a few days old in 1952. But anyway, the Communist Party of Australia, otherwise to be known from here on as the Party, took pity and offered an ideologically arranged marriage to the only communist plumber in the Sunshine Branch. A good bet, but perhaps she wasn't committed that much to the cause because she declined the offer. In the meantime, after about a year, she received a back payment from the government after being granted a war widow's pension. That money was judiciously spent on the purchase of a 1958 Morris Minor 1000. My mother, being a practical person, could see that speed was the solution to all her time constraints. After all, she was a single mother with 2 young children and a busy job as a secretary to the radiologist at the Footscray Hospital. And she was a very good typist too. But very fast, I believe. 160 words a minute, that's pretty fast, right? But she did it like it was nothing. Anyway, but she hadn't bargained, after all that. She hadn't bargained on the Sunshine Station railway gates. This was a big time constraint in those days. They were an obstacle that even she was not able to overcome, even with her prodigious lead foot. This would become the first time that I would be mistaken in thinking that I had lost my mother. After she passed out due to the shock of barely escaping these jaws of death, I was in the car in the front seat, and she tried to feed the gates. She was a bit, stressed with time. I think, she was going to be in the kindergarten and off to the hospital. So, so she I think she clipped the gates, and anyway, she got out of the car and then proceeded to pass out, which we later found out after many years this was a habit for us, whenever there was a shock. Anyway, I remember I stood there and I inquired from a lady who was assisting whether my mother was dead. And at the age of 4, after having witnessed my father's death a year earlier, it seemed on the cards. But fortunately, a doctor arrived and reassured me that she had just fainted. A habit which she got some reputation for repeating. Anyway, so life continued, and soon Bill arrived on the scene, a fellow ideological traveller, and they were soon married, taking on the Cold War together with a renewed vigour. The government sent many spooks to haunt us, bug our phones, spy on us, and otherwise harass us. But that only goaded our mother and Bill to newer heights of activism. The truth is, they were joined by many like-minded and equally committed members of the party, particularly in the Sunshine Branch, who all seemed like family to me. Such was the feeling. And I very much remember my mother at that time playing her uke and guitar and singing Australian folk songs, which she loved, and Pete Seeger's songs and the Weavers, etc., at the many socials and gatherings that we attended. Mum also recruited me in the service of the party as the runner delivering the Tribune and Guardian newspapers to all the subscribers from her trusty Maury on its regular run through the neighbourhood. We did that for years, and it always seemed like a very personal thing we did together. So that car was a very useful tool for my mother, even if she was saddled with all the driving, as Bill, he was colourblind and couldn't see if the lights had changed to red or not. It was a bit of a problem. Sometimes that little Morris wasn't so trusty though, and required a bit of helping hand, which was when Mum got the trusty crank handle out and started it by hand. An impressive feat, it seemed to me.